Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I go about repairing the inner wheelhouse, this rear quarter panel of the 6.3. This video is a little out of sequence because I had a corrupt file and I kind of messed it up before, so I'm reshooting this part and I hope it makes sense to you. So let me get in and show you what it looked like before I made the patch. So here we are. This is actually cut out. As I say, I'm recreating the earlier video, but this whole section looked like this basically. I've got it here. It's all your typical. There's part of the flange of the outside panel pinch welded on here. So you can see here, I'm just trying to got the camera on a tripod. You can see that we had typical rust where you know, where the main fender comes round, wraps round, there should be a seam sealer all the way down here on the inside of the trunk to stop this happening, but you know, that might have crumbled away over the years and kind of eaten away this flange, so that's all gone. And this is obviously part where it gets pinch weld. So this piece was in here, and let me show you how I recreated the repair patch, and then the video will pick up I believe where we're doing the flange or somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's essentially what we're replacing today. So to recreate this section, before I cut it out, I laid some paper on here, essentially. Move these magnets out of the way here. Get those out of the way. So essentially I laid paper on here, taped it up here, you see, drew my arc with the old rusty material, so I knew how to cut and the size and the basic profile of the patch here, okay? And that enabled me to make this section, here, this top section, and then the video should pick up. I'll do some editing so you can see where we're at from there. So that's essentially what I did. Here's a patch that I've taken from the template. I've brought it over a little bit. I'm going to make sure we're following the profile of the inner wheel arch here, and this is much more than I'm actually going to cut off in the end, but this gives me a place to put some clincos in, so I can take it on and off repeatedly and make sure I go back in the same place again. So I've been kind of refining my arc, trimming to give me enough meat to be able to do my adjustments to make that little join there, all on the flange, the return flange. And then also there is a little crease in the inner wheel arch here that I'm going to follow, because all this metal up above here, it's only rusted right at the very front leading edge. So I'm going to cut my patch across here and then dive it down. I probably won't take as much as this off, but we will see. It's just kind of refining it and figuring it out as you go. So I've cleaned all the back metal up to see where we're at. Alright, I've made some trims. I put some clincos in so I can take it on and off as many times as I want. I've used a straight edge on this inner fender to bring it all the way down through this patch, and I'm leaving it long here because this can be trimmed later to tie it all into the return here. There's a section here that would need welding on there, and I will probably do that on the bench right here and leave it spare, and then I can trim it inside here. What I can do now is I'll rough cut out, I won't go up to my line yet, but rough cut out just below these clincos, and then I can weld in my return. That's how I think I'm going to do it, but we may change our mind part way through. Right, now here's my clinco holes. I'm going to cut just below the clincos to relieve all this rust area here, and then make my return and check my angle and all that good stuff before I cut the patch in finally. That's the plan anyway. So alright, there you go. I just hacked off that section so I can build my return, and then I've still got my clinker holes to put on and off, and then check my return this way to make sure this angle is right, not too far this way, not too far that way, because that's got a spot weld onto the outer quarter panel. So what I've done, I've got a bit of card here, and I can tape it on the edge here and kind of work the edge here, and then I can trim that, and that will give me the tail of the tape, so to speak, on this kind of sweeping curve, what my return will look like. Okay, I'll relieve that a little bit there. It's fighting me a bit there, but anyway, that will give me my basic edge. I'll leave a load of scrap and then I can always trim it to fit, trim it to size, so to speak. One thing before I take that off, now obviously when I attach this return here, it's going to have a relatively sharp edge, so I'm going to have probably a little weld, a little gap in the weld point there, so I can build it up with weld and then put a little roundness over it. It's not crucial because obviously this joint on the inside is going to get seam sealed, so you'll never see it. It's completely buried under seam sealer, and then on the other side it'll be completely buried. So my main thing, I was concerned about getting this nice rolled edge here and all that, and I go, you know what, you're overthinking it. Just get it welded and it's strong and the arch and the pinch weld correct, then you're good to go, because that has to be filled in, as I say, with seam sealer. So now I've made my mark, I can just scissor that out, and then that will give me an idea of how to cut the metal. See, there you have it. So it's got a gentle curve that way on the underside, and then the gentle curve that way, which would have been kind of very tricky to you know, replicate without using a little template here. So right, now I use the template to cut a strip out, see, right, so make sure we're in focus. Camera jumps out of focus sometimes. So this has that curve to it, and essentially what we're going to do is cut this little nubbin away that's in my way there, but that will get tack welded on the inside return like that, round about at that angle. I'll put a couple of tacks in just to hold it, you know, check it, bend it a little bit, futz around with it, take it on and off. And when I'm happy with the way that looks, I will fully weld it up, grind it up, and probably weld it on the back side as well. I won't need to clean those welds up. And also I can gently flex it to follow my curve all the way around, you see. So there we have it. So let me get that tacked up, and then if you can see at this end, the camera here, I'm going to tack a return piece on, probably about that wide, that goes into the trunk there, and then tidy all that up. And then when I'm happy with the fit, not until that time I will make my final cut to let this patch in, and then I probably won't film it all the rest of it because it's the same principle. I just wanted to show you this one. Yeah, that's going to be all right, that. Really, it looked a lot uglier than it really was, and I'm taking a little more metal off because I didn't want this thing to be too thin. It'd start to warp, I think, a little bit more. So I left a little meat here, and also I will weld this side and this side of the patch for full strength, and then obviously it's going to get undercoated and all that, you'll never see it. So there you have it. That's coming out nicely, that. Right, we'll get that tacked on and I'll get back to you. Right, so I've removed it, I've tack welded the little return on here, and then I'm just playing with it with my angle a little bit with my hands, really just flexing it in there. And then this is the return piece that's going to return here, and then this all gets kind of trimmed and messed around with. I might have to make some modifications, but that'll be when I come to fit the outer fender. But this is coming up all right. I've just got to kind of make sure. I'm going to probably trim back a little bit here to refine that, and then there's one of my magnets there, and then we'll weld on the inside as well. Right, now I can finish welding this edge on the bench, both sides. And as I said in the other video, once I get close to filling in all these areas, I'll grind up these tacks, and then that will show me where all my pinholes are. So I'm going to dress this all up, both sides. Well, I won't dress it in the inside, I'll just leave a lot for strength like that. And clean this flange here that I welded on, and then I will show you what it looks like afterwards. Okay, there you go. It's all welded up. Put this little flange on the back here, this return flange, and this end here is going to get a little trimmed up, as I say, but that's come out pretty good. I've got a probably trim this back just a little smidge, you know, but I'll wait till a later date just to trim this back. Doesn't have to be that fat. And that edge, I've kind of, what I do, flatten here, and then round over. I got good penetration to the back. I didn't have to weld the back because I got good penetration through there. And I've been careful to try and pick out the pinholes by backlighting it. And that's what I find a little tedious work. So as I say, I grind as I go so that you don't end up piling weld after weld. So let's go over and fit this to the car and see if it works, shall we? On there. Oh, there it is. Completely wrong area. Okay, there we go. Popped out. This final one down here. There you go. So that's all on there, and so it's a pretty good facsimile of the original. So I will just next thing to do pretty much is weld that guy in, and these can hold it nice and tight. I'll probably use some black paint and score a line so I get a real tight fit. Now the next thing we've got to do now that we've cut the main piece out here and we're lined up nicely, I'm going to clean the back side of the inner wheel arch, get all the you know, the under seal off here, because you don't want that on there because it will mess up the welding process and you'll never get a good clean weld. So you want metal looking like this on the other side. Obviously this is already clean, and we will tack weld that guy on there, and I'll either completely finish that or I'll just leave it tacked on, and then I'll continue on with the rest of the part. I haven't decided yet, but let's get that tacked on and see where we go. Right, I thought I'd stop part way through. I haven't obviously finished yet. I'm spreading my heat out among the whole panel here, and then obviously I can weld up these Klinko holes that we had to align the panel. And I got a large piece of flat bar steel and clamped it along this straight edge so I could really get this joint nice and tight where it wraps round. So I'm just going to carry on making sure panel doesn't get too hot, because we want this as straight as possible here. I'm going to weld both sides. This has got a natural crease in it that I'm trying to replicate, not going crazy, because obviously this is in a wheelhouse and you'll never see all this. You may see as far as this area here if you look inside the trunk, but definitely not up here. And then I'll fill all these in, grind them like I've been doing, so then backlight them so to tell me where any pinholes are, and then when I get to a certain stage I'll come on the underside and fill in as well, make sure it's amazing how, I mean, that's nice and solid now. Very satisfying to do something like this. So let me carry on with that, and I will start to fabricate this, maybe on this video, but maybe not, we'll see. And just taking my time. Okay, there we have it, all welded in. I welded in on the back side as well, where I didn't think I had as good a penetration as I was like, but actually fact it went through really nicely. I've got a couple of areas here I'm going to pick up off camera. There's a few little divots here I want to tidy up. I'm not going to get too fussed in this region because you'll obviously never see this disappeared, but as long as it's strong and welded both sides. This area here you may see, so I'm going to really make sure that this is good, but basically strength and penetration. So all went in well. You see this little area here, there's where it comes down and then returns here. Cut myself there, look. I made sure this area was nice and smooth, but you can see there's a weld straight ahead here. You'll never see that. I wanted to leave in as much weld for strength, and it's immensely strong. And then once this fender gets repaired, we'll trim this and then it will get all pinch welded. So I'm going to carry on with that, not on camera, because it's much the same process and I don't want this video getting crazy long. You kind of get the idea. Let me get the camera on the tripod. I'll show you one other little thing. I always in discovery as I'm doing these jobs, techniques and that. Hold on a second. Okay, so you've probably heard me talking about it a lot as far as seeing what you're doing, especially under here, because you're looking this way and you've got the shop lights here activating the darkening mode on the lid, so it's going light dark, and it can get very awkward, especially also you're bent over and all that stuff. So came up with this little technique which has really worked really well. So I got one of these shop lights, right, like this, and then I used it in conjunction, putting this against the body and using it as a holder, and so it worked wonderful because I could really see what I was doing, fire, and then the darkening on the helmet activate. So this worked really good as a support as you go, because the backlighting kept activating. It's a real pain in the butt, I tell you. So that was a kind of a cool technique I come up with, and it really worked. Just as reference, a lot of these techniques I got from Fitzee's fabrication, so I don't want to take all the credit for doing something like this. It's a wonderful channel, Fitzee's Fabrications, guys in Newfoundland, I think. Talk's kind of funny, but no, really lovely guy. What I like about Fitzee is these kind of repairs he does without fancy tools, just hammers, dollies, bits of metal you've got lying around. He even actually chops up, I think, filing cabinets to get the steel. I mean, the steel is good steel. This, I bought a bunch of 18 and 16 gauge, so this is new stuff, but it don't matter as long as it's the right thickness. And so thanks Fitzee for all your tips, and worked really well. I'm looking forward to getting into this next section here, and I think that's it for today. Let me one other thing before I go. I'll show you in a minute what I took off of my spare 108 in the garden now, the one that the wife really likes looking at. Obviously once we've done this inner wheelhouse repair, we've got to take care of this guy. Now, as you know, some of you, if you know, some of these panels come in with a repair panel that comes and dives right across. But this is an awful long field as far as to mitigate any heat and warpage from the MIG welder. It'd be different if I had a TIG, but I don't have a TIG, and I'm not going to buy a TIG just for these few repairs that I've got on the upper side of the body. If I was doing a lot of upper body repairs, I would get a TIG. But because most of mine are all hidden in areas that are not as vital as far as being dead perfect for paint and stuff like that, I'm sticking with MIG. So I thought I would cut underneath the trim line here, and then that gave me a nice area to weld up, just like this edge on the fender, dress it, trim goes on, hides it nicely. The only thing is with that, obviously you've got the inside to deal with. I haven't ruled that out yet. I've got to bring the car down off of the stand and see what kind of access I have under there to make sure it's neat and tidy on the other side, so when you open the trunk it looks nice. This does have some tar type of sound deadening from the factory on the inside that will obviously have to come off to make the weld, but then again that can go back on to hide anything that is a little unsightly and couldn't be dressed up properly, you know, this stuff basically. This is from the factory. So anyway, so that has to be taken off to weld, and then it could be put back on. So I'm kind of leaning towards that. Now another thing, let me show you what I took off of the spare, and then we'll figure something out here. So this is one I took off of the spare car, right? Bit of a devil to get off, I tell you. So I broke all the spot welds on the inside here, okay? Broke all that, made a cut right across, and I didn't break the spot welds off of the rear sail panel because my friend Matthew needs that for a roof, and so I cut back from that a little bit. So the good thing about using a whole panel like this, you see, is you've got spot welding, which is dead easy, and then that seam gets dressed and then covered with a nice piece of trim, okay, and then I cut off part of the rocker for our rocker repair, right? So because this rocker is spot welded onto here, and it's behind a panel and it's very difficult to get and break this joint, so I left it. Going to dress this, clean this all up. So, and then this is obviously spot welded to the inner rocker, okay, so this all stays nice and factory, right? So we're leading up here, we can make a cut here, and then all along here, let me transfer to the other car. So we're cut along here, you see, which again, see, will be hidden by trim. In there, that will be hidden by trim, right, and dressed, so if there is any imperfections, this will hide it, and then that will travel along here. And the only upper body area that you need to really be careful is this little dive right across, and then all of this is from the new fender all the way back to a seam here, pinch seam here, and then a pinch seam here, okay? But then obviously if I'm replacing all this unit, I've got to make sure my trunk comes back in, and we've got to make sure, check all of our body gaps. I'm leaning towards that just purely because we haven't got a fuss on the inside. We have to break this spot weld for the jack holder, not a big deal really, just drill those spots out, break that just hangs off, plus the spring for the jack there, that just hangs off and then gets reattached to the new fender, okay? So I'll deactivate that spring, bring that down, set the hood on here, and then triple check my panel gaps. I'll even mount the lens here because there's a hole here and then a hole here. That will give me a good indicator, and then that'll be good. I think that's probably the way I'm going. I'm not 100% sure yet. I will be on the other fender. I'll be taking these off again, and as I say, these were added for the US market. This is in a slightly wrong position. The US ones are slightly up in line with this hole in actual fact, so whoever mounted this mounted it a bit low, but I'm getting rid of that anyway. What else? And then so once that goes on, you see, obviously you've got to finish this inner arch. Once that goes on, then our final, see that little panel down there, that's the wheel well, the famous wheel well that always rusts out. And then, not sure of the order of things, the jacking point, the rocker. And then, once that's all welded up, we can finish one more patch on the floor, and then all of the car on this side is done, which is awesome. And then we can swing it around and start the big repair where I may well be replacing the driver's side floor plan. Before I go, I just wanted to show you, I just shot it with some zinc primer. Okay, not done yet, but I don't want any flash rusting. And then also that'll help you see if you've got any deviation. I've got a slight line here. This is my crease line I wanted to have, and so yeah, that looks pretty good actually. So once that's all primed up and in the trunk, you'll never see it. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, check out Fitzee's Fabrications. Really great bloke, a lot of great tips, yeah, hope to see you in the next video. And those of you who haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe, share the notification bell, and you'll see the videos as they keep coming. So take care, guys. Stay warm. We've had some snow today, so hopefully where you are, you're warm and safe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye bye. If I haven't already said, please hit like, share, subscribe, and that will help me gain some subscribers, and that's shit.